Welcome to this e-lecture on health promotion planning. So far in PUB705, Health Promotion Needs Assessment and Planning, we have focused on how to go about doing a community assessment. The last 4 weeks of our course, we're going to focus on health promotion planning. So moving on to look at health promotion competencies in another phase of the health promotion process. Topics covered in this lecture include the health promotion planning stages. We're going to have a look at health and wellbeing priority or issue analysis and how we do that. We're going to look at how we source and use the evidence to undertake a health issue analysis and also to establish goals, objectives and sub-objectives, to evaluate goals, objectives and sub-objectives, and particularly outcome and impact evaluation. So if we go back to our broad health promotion process, we've learned how to undertake community assessment. So if we move on to planning now, then we are going to learn how to do a range of steps that are involved in planning. And again, while we're doing that, we also need to keep in mind the underlying values and principles and the use of evidence and theory that are important to planning processes. So we're still going to be working with frameworks and models to help us do the various stages of the planning work. So again, if we come back to our broad health promotion planning and evaluation cycle that Talbot and Verinder propose, then we, just as there are in needs assessment or models, have some process around how to go about designing the program and developing an action plan. And just a reminder also that these processes are iterative, so planning and evaluation are ongoing as we move through the life phase of a health promotion project. So there are a range of health promotion planning competencies that we need to develop for professional practice. And the International Union Health Promotion and Education framework focus on the competencies that are required for practitioners to develop measurable health promotion goals and objectives based on assessment of needs and assets, which we now know quite a lot about, and in partnership with stakeholders, which we've talked about quite a lot as well, and also community. So if we have a look at the specific planning domain competencies, then you'll see a range of skills that you may feel more comfortable or less comfortable with depending on previous work experience. But essentially that process of thinking about how we actually work and engage with stakeholders in planning processes, our application of models to undertake that work, developing plans within the resources and the constraints that we have to work with and to respond to needs and assets of a community, to develop and communicate appropriate, realistic and measurable goals and objectives for health promotion action. And that will be something that you will do in your third assessment task in this course. Identify appropriate health promotion strategies to achieve agreed goals and objectives, which you won't do in this course, but you will do in PUB702 Health Promotion Implementation and Evaluation. In the evaluation and research domain, there's also a competency around integrating evaluation into the planning and implementation of all health promotion action. So we're going to be focusing on that competency here as well. So planning for evaluation. So specifically in this course, we're going to start with having a look at what the health and wellbeing priority we are trying to address is. So if you track down to the arrow, and you can see that little health promotion planning process in the corner. So once we've actually done our analysis, then we use that analysis as the basis to develop goals and objectives, which are essentially about being very clear about what changes we are trying to achieve in the determinants of health that we have identified in the short and the longer term. From there, then we are able to go and develop our evaluation to evaluate those goals and objectives. And so what the evaluation tells us is how well or whether or not we know that we have achieved the changes that we've planned to achieve and that we've specified in our goals and objectives. So, a little bit closer look at this. So again, the blue part is the health and wellbeing priority analysis. So that's the focus of your second task, doing this analysis. We've got our health priorities. Now we need to look at what the immediate and the contributing determinants are. From there, and you can see the arrows, it's like this alignment, then we can develop our goal, which is directly related to the health priority. We can develop our objectives, which are directly related to the immediate health determinants, and the sub-objectives, which are related to the contributing determinants. If we move across to the orange section, then we are looking at our outcome and our impact evaluation. So the goal relates to the outcome evaluation, which is the longer term change that we want to see in the priority health issue, and objectives and sub-objectives respond to impact evaluation, which are the shorter and more incremental changes that we want to see in the contributing determinants as we implement the program. We also, as part of this broad planning process, develop strategies and activities and process evaluation, but we are not doing that in this course. The focus of that planning comes in your next course in PUB705 Health Promotion Implementation and Evaluation. So this figure is a really good figure to put on your wall because it keeps you focused around where we are in the planning process and what actual planning we're doing as we move through. So for you, Task 2 is related to the health and wellbeing priority and the analysis of it, the blue section, and then your Task 3 to the green and the orange sections, developing goals and objectives and developing outcome and impact evaluation. So for now, I just want to quickly show you what a health and wellbeing priority analysis looks like, and we'll be working with early cessation of breastfeeding as our health issue as a case example. I'm not going to give it all to you in this introductory e-lecture, but I think it will really help you to see what you're working toward for Task 2. So we use the literature and as a form of evidence, as a form of secondary evidence at least, to work through and identify the determinants of early cessation of breastfeeding. And in this example, in an Australian context, all of the determinants across the top row are immediate determinants. So those determinants immediately lead to the early cessation of breastfeeding, so before ceasing breastfeeding before 6 months. The bottom row are the contributing determinants for each of those immediate determinants. So if we have a look at the first immediate determinant, which is mother's intention to bottle feed or use formula, then what contributes to a mother's intention to bottle feed and use formula are low levels of awareness of the benefits of breastfeeding, and excessive exposure to advertising and promotion of infant formula. So those two determinants contribute to that intention of the mother. So this is a little bit like playing a jigsaw. We need to identify all of the determinants, and then we need to put them into an order, or a logic order. So that's what we'll be working on in this week, and having a practice around that, so that you understand the skill, so that when you do your task, you will be able to organise those relationships. The equity populations bit at the bottom refers to the populations that are impacted most by in this early cessation of breastfeeding, so that we know Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women, women under 25 years of age, women living in rural areas, and women experiencing domestic violence are more at risk of early cessation of breastfeeding than other population groups or feeding mothers. So the literature always, or quite often, tells us what population groups are most at risk of a particular issue. So that will be something that you will need to look at and identify for your priority population or your priority issue. We then move on to develop and write goals and objectives. And so there's a formula that we use to write goals and objectives, and it's the SMART formula. So we'll be learning more about that when we get to your third task. But what we do, and you'll be able to see here, we write a goal for the health issue, then we write an objective for each of the immediate determinants, and then we write a sub-objective for each of the contributing determinants. And again, we draw on the literature to identify benchmarks to inform the sorts of changes that we would like to see over time in the range of determinants that we're planning to address to increase the rates of women breastfeeding for 6 months and beyond. Then in task 3 also, you will develop an evaluation plan for your goal and objectives. This is just an overview of 3 of the objectives for this case study, but again, it just gives you an idea about what you'll be doing. You'll be developing indicators for each objective and sub-objective. You'll be finding benchmarks or standards or to outline the degree of change you want to make. You'll be thinking about the best data collection method to collect data, whether primary or secondary data, to evidence the change, and the actual tool that you might use to collect that data, who you're going to get your data from, so your sample, and at what point in the life of a program. So we'll be doing that in assessment task 3. So for now, that seems like a lot, and I appreciate that. So we're just going to focus on getting our health issue analysis done for our priority topic. That will require you to read your articles, and when I meet with you all this week, we will have a look at how to identify the determinants from your articles. And once you've done that, then you can put together a health issue analysis map, something like this, to present the determinants for your health issue. So this e-lecture was really to introduce you to the sort of broad health promotion planning stages, particularly the things you need to plan for and how you go about that. And as I said, we'll be focusing on the first part, so this health and wellbeing priority issue analysis this week. using the evidence or the literature, and then from there we'll move on to look at goals, objectives, and to develop our evaluation in task 3.